Hey guys, what's going on? So in this we're going to go over war tips and tricks for free-to-play people and for light spenders, and essentially I'm going to help you out with where you should start taking your war roster to, and some strategies that endgame alliances are doing, and that you should be pushing your alliance towards. And I think that this will just kind of help set you up for the future of alliance war and stuff. So let's talk about requirements, and when I mean requirements, I mean where you should kind of have your roster at. And so for gear, real quickly, I'm going to say that you should take most Alliance War characters from about gear 10 to gear 12 and a half. It depends on how much of a gear crunch you have. For example, if we have another month of 3 bio characters or something, then obviously you can't take them probably all up to gear 12 and a half in enough time. But I think if you stop them at gear 10 or gear 11, hopefully it's enough to bring those other 2 characters that come along with them up to gear 11 if need be. And I'm going to say that war characters kind of rank below arena characters and raid characters for the most part. But I will say it seems like in about every release that one of the characters coming out is going to be like an endgame character, while the other 2 feel like war characters. So like I said, we're going to mostly be focusing on war characters. But I'm going to go over where you should level characters. And where you should level characters depends, as a free-to-play person, what I believe should depend basically on what their mandatory T4s are. So for example, let's go to Symbiote Spider-Man, because I know he has pretty solid T4s. So the level requirement for each T4, so for the basic it requires level 65. For the special, it requires level 68. For the ultimate, it requires level 70. And for the passive, it requires level 64. So let's say Symbiote Spider-Man, you only want to put the passive on him. Take him up to level 64. Take him up to gear 12 and a half, gear 10, gear 11. Whatever you can do. That way you can maximize like his output, and also save a little bit of gold in gear along the way. And the reason why I say you should stop there is because you're getting what you need out of a passive on a character. For example, Symbiote Spider-Man, it's kind of a bad example for what I'm going over when I talk about specifically stopping. But what I typically look for in a really great T4 or a mandatory T4 is kind of something that gives you, for example, you gain 20% max health for self, Hero Spider-Verse, and Symbiote allies with Symbiote Spider-Man's passive. You kind of want that 20% range. You want that for when it comes to health or damage. You could do 10% health and 10% damage. So like I said, you want it to be about 20%. I would say resistance and focus you can kind of skip out on. But yeah, essentially a mandatory T4 kind of is something that is the 20% max health, or it's going to be something like his basic where it's going to be damage and then something along with it. So he does 20% damage to the primary and secondary target and applies defense down for 2 turns to the secondary target. So that's a 2-turn defense down. So when it comes to like mandatory T4s on certain characters, you kind of want to look for something that is going to help your team's damage output, help their max health, or help extend slows or something, or apply slows to everybody, or get rid of debuffs, something along those lines. Now there's complementary T4s, kind of like the Spider Slingshot, where it's 40% damage to primary and adjacent targets, which is nice. So if you're talking a 3-player triangle that Symbiote Spider-Man does his special on, then that's about 120% damage, and he'll always apply bleed to those targets. Now it's not a great T4, and it's not, if you put it on him, it's not too wasteful, especially Symbiote Spider-Man, because he's kind of used quite often. But it's not mandatory. So like I said, let's say we wanted to take Symbiote Spider-Man and put his basic on him. So then we would take him up to level 65 and T4 is basic. If we wanted to put the special on him, then we would take him up to level 68, stop, put his special on him. But he kind of requires his ultimate just because it is a 2-turn slow. So we take him up to level 70 and stop there. Now like I said, he's a bad example because he's going to be a Doom Raid character for you. He might even be an arena character for you, and he's definitely a Dark Dimension character. But let's talk about some T4s that you can skip. For example, Iron Fist, 40% flat damage at the end on an attack that chains to 2 targets is it's not needed. There's a whole ton of these that we can go over. It's just basically like pure damage. I don't really like a 5% boost in the passive. I don't really like. So you can kind of avoid those T4s. But like I said, when it comes to these characters, if you're trying to save gold and trying to save gear, then I would say take them up to their mandatory T4 level and stop there. If you want to kind of get another cheap spot that's above level 70, 71 is a good spot. There's a lot of stat boosts that come along with it. So you can also stop there if you're free to play, and if you kind of want to have a common stopping spot for those, then go there. But if you're taking characters to gear 12 and a half, I believe level 70 is going to be, you're going to be fine at level 70. So you do want to stop most of your war characters at 12 and a half once you get there. I will say you want to upgrade the newest war characters that come out. You know, skill military is kind of contradictory to that, but they also got a rework. But for the most part, newer war characters are probably going to be around longer than kind of older ones. And if you do want to start spending gold gear on war characters, for example, and when I say gear 12 and a half, I mean just putting the purple gear on them and skipping out on this orange gear. It's just a little stat boost. It's not crazy, but it's something that I like to stop at. But if you do want to take a character from gear 12 and put some gold gear on them, then you have to make sure that you can take them up to gear 14. The gear 13 stat boost that you get is very, very minimal, especially compared to the gear 14 stat boost. So if you're going to put orange gear on a character, you might as well go to gear 14. I think that way you're kind of getting the most bang for your orange gear that you're putting on them. You definitely don't want to be taking war characters up to gear 15 unless you have the excess gear, which I think if you're watching this, you probably don't. And then I also want to kind of talk about mini uniques that come with these characters. So to take a character from gear 13 or gear 12 and a half to gear 14, it requires 36 mini uniques. To take a character from gear 12 and a half to gear 15, it requires 61 mini uniques. So for example, Kestrel just came out. She requires shield tech. That is, and you want to be taking Kestrel up to gear 15 as soon as possible. She is a end game character. She's very free to play friendly, and she's great. So that's gonna be 61 shield tech that's required for you. For example, I know Black Widow requires shield tech. So let's say you want to be able to take Kestrel up to gear 15, and you also want to take Black Widow up to gear 14 for war specifically. Then you should try and count and make sure that you're at 97 mini uniques. That way you have 61 mini uniques for your Kestrel and 36 for your Black Widow. So for example, like if you want to take Daredevil up, I don't remember what Daredevil requires, Prometheum. Let's say you want to be extra careful and make sure you're not kind of wasting these mini uniques. Try and get up to 97 on Prometheum if you want to take Daredevil up. Obviously, if you want to spend it, but it does require 36. So essentially, the way I'm getting that 97 number is you have a 61 backup in case a new God tier character comes out, and then you have your 36 that you're going to spend on getting that character up to gear 14. I hope that makes sense, but I don't want you guys to be blindsided because you take up a war character just because you like that war character. I think most free-to-play alliances, most dolphin spending alliances, I think gear 12 and a half level 70 is perfectly viable. It's not going to be big damage, but a lot of the times the offenses that come out can do like a 100k punch up or an 80k punch up, so you really don't need to have the most gear on them. For example, I definitely need to take White Tiger up just because she's at gear 13 and she didn't get much of a stat boost, and I have a lot of focus cheat. I also want to talk about, in the future, I'm going to be releasing a mini unique guide, talking about specifically which characters you can kind of put mini uniques on and which to avoid putting mini uniques on. So for example, Misty Knight requires Extremis. The only other characters that require Extremis, I believe, are 2 really bad aim character and 2 Hydra minions. So I'm probably going to take Misty Knight up to gear 14 just because I have the extra mini uniques, and I am following that 97 mini unique rule. And that is hard to do, but like I said, you kind of don't want to be blindsided by that. I'm trying to think of an example. I guess Gravitonium was a good example where I got blindsided. So I took my Yellow Jacket up just because I had him at 7 red, and then Longshot, I believe Longshot and Shatterstar came out after, and so I was racing for Gravitonium, and I got Longshot after I had already gotten all my City DD4 ready. So I just kind of want to make you guys aware of that. And obviously, when it comes to war teams, if you're free to play or light spender, go look and see what the content creators are making as well. I don't buy new characters outright when they come out, so I like to see what other characters are doing as well, or what other players are doing as well, before I actually invest a whole bunch into those teams. I didn't do that with Skill Military when they first came out, and I kind of got burned by that. So yeah, obviously double check when it comes to war teams and T4s and all that stuff. Let's go on to strategy. So I think you guys should have 10 offenses and 8 defenses, and I will pop mine up right now on screen. I hope you guys can read it. It might be a little bit blurry. I'll run through it. So my defenses are Heroes for Hire, Emarauder, Sinister Six, Mercs, Fantastic Four, Coulson with Inhumans, Wave 1, and Technerva. And then my offenses are Shadowlands, Black Order, X Factor, X-Men, Zemo Hydra, X-Force, X-Men, Symbiotes, Brotherhood, and Supernatural. So I have 10 offenses and 8 defenses. And the reason why that I suggest that is because you're going to get 8 attacks naturally throughout the war. So you definitely want to have 8 offenses for sure. And then I like to have 2 extra spares just in case something goes wrong in an attack. And you start off the match with 2 energy. And so a lot of endgame alliances, what they have their guys do is they have them either buy 2 to 4 refreshes. So essentially before they get their 3rd energy drop, they're already at 4 to 6 attacks. And that way that they can do a full clear way before the other team gets a chance to, such as my alliance did. Especially endgame alliances, endgame alliances are going to be doing full clears, and this is how you want to be pushing your alliance to be, what you want to push your alliance to be doing, because you want them to get into that mindset of doing refreshes right when a war comes out, because it is a race to the end of doing a full clear. And that's just kind of the strategy that you should be practicing with your alliance. Don't do it all the time, but maybe do it once a war or something, especially if you're early on. Now, you may not be able to do a full clear, but I think it's still just a good habit to develop for that stuff. And then I also kind of want to just touch on hybrid teams. I'm not recommending everyone do a hybrid team right now, but that is the way that the game is going. For example, I believe in Misty Knight or Calling Wings passive. There's something about having 3 Heroes for Hire allies to get the actual full benefit of the passive, so it doesn't require a full 4 team. I might be wrong about that, but let's say, for example, I'm not. So there could potentially be a Heroes for Hire hybrid team with, let's say, Misty Knight, Luke Cage, and Colleen Wing, instead of having Iron Fist and then 2 others, and that might be the better, defensive team, for example. I doubt that, just because Heroes for Hire uses revives, and dealing with revives can be costly, but that's just an example. So be on the lookout for that type of stuff when it comes to new alliance characters coming out, especially if they're not going to expand how many defenses there are and how many attacks you get per match. But yeah, that's going to do it for my Alliance War tips and tricks. I want to know what you guys think. If you want me to go more in depth on my Alliance War and offenses and defenses, please let me know. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope I explained that mini unique thing properly. It might have been a little bit confusing, but yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. On this channel, I do guides, I do orb openings, and I do streams, and I do all sorts of Marvel Strike Force stuff. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, join the Discord, follow me on Twitch, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.